Hello and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video, looking at the last deck from Legions, which is Zombies Unleashed, which is a pure black deck, and as you can probably guess, the theme is zombies. So we have the deck list here. We have 32 creatures, which is huge. 2 instants, 1 sorcery, 25 land, mana curve off to the side there. So yeah, bunch of creatures, which is we've come to expect from these Legions theme set, because Legions was such a heavy creature set. I mean, overall Onslaught block is such a creature heavy set anyway, just because like tribal is like the big theme. So obviously we want a bunch of creatures, but let's dive in, start looking at all these zombies. So first we've got like a bunch of zombies which care about other zombies, which is nice. It's wholesome. So we have a single Bone Knitter, which is just 2 mana for a 1/1. You can pay 2 mana to regenerate a zombie. Fine. Has morph. If you wanted to morph it, I'm not sure why you'd want to morph it, but if you wanted to, you've got the option. We have 2 Corpse Harvesters. This one's actually kind of interesting. So 5 mana for a 3/3. 1 cost 1 black tap, sacrifice a creature, search your library for a zombie and a swamp, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle your library. Quite an interesting effect, honestly. Just kind of a repeatable tutor for zombies and a swamp. It's not because it's not or, it is both. You do get a zombie and a swamp. And it's not a basic swamp either. Which I mean, it doesn't matter in this deck, but like any time it says search for a land, as when it doesn't say basic, that means that opens up potential. I've got no idea. Corpse Harvesters are probably not used in any environment beyond casual, but like it's just an interesting thing to have this like repeatable tutor effect for any zombie card, doesn't have any limitations on it, and and get a land as well. And I think that's a fine price to pay, like just 2 and sacrifice a creature. And it can be done at instant speed, which is always interesting as well. Obviously, it's attached to like a 5 mana body, which is like fairly pricey. But the fact he's a 3/3 as well, which means he can sort of like serve okay in combat as well. I like Corpse Harvester. I mean, overall, I like zombies. I mean, I guess to talk about that. I like zombies as a tribe. Zombies as a tribe has always they've always felt very powerful to me. They usually have like very good effects, like a lot of good synergy. They usually obviously have lots of good stuff going on with the graveyard. They're usually hard to kill. Yeah, I really like zombies as a theme. I'm really happy they got a theme deck all to themselves, and obviously we'll see more of that as well when we eventually make it to Innistrad, which I feel like is obviously quite a few months off, but we will get there. I promise we will get to Innistrad, and we'll talk about zombies then as well. So we have 2 Frightshroud Couriers, which is the black courier. It's a whole cycle in the set. I've talked about it before, I think, because it's shown up before. But basically, you can pay 2 cards in a black, tap him down. You can keep him tapped. You don't have to untap him during untap step. And as long as he's tapped, another zombie gets +2/+2 and gets fear, which is like quite a strong buff. Fear means it can only be blocked by artifact creatures and black creatures. Hardly any artifact creatures around in this set. It's I'd say it's what technically better than Intimidate, because it can't be blocked by colorless creatures, which would have mattered because if there's a lot of morph creatures around, then they can block stuff with fear. But yeah, just there we go. I just think it's pretty good ability just to give for 3 mana. And then 2 Gem Palm Baluta. I love Gem Palm Baluta. This is I like because I've obviously built like a zombie deck before. Like who hasn't? I think this is such an all-star. Basically, so it's 6 mana for a 4/3. Doesn't matter. You will never. I guarantee you will never ever cast him as a creature. You will use that cycling ability because that is where his value is. Cycling for 2 black. When you cycle him, obviously you get to draw a card as part of cycling him, but you have a player lose 1 life for every zombie in play. In the zombie decks I've built over the years, like this guy's usually been like a finisher. because if you swamp the board with zombies, which are meant to, because like there's a lot of obviously effects that, especially like in recent sets that create like zombie tokens and stuff. If you cycle this guy and like you even get I think 3 life off it, I think that's like definitely a good shout. Like you would play a card, that's that like for 2 black instant. Target player loses 3 life and you draw a card. You would play that card. So yeah, Gem Palm Peluche is great, and obviously the fact he's a creature means that there's so many like graveyard effects that you can get him back and like just keep doing it. Gem Palm Peluche is so good. Like definitely, I think the best out of all the Gem Palm creatures. So one of the rares of the deck is Graveborn Muse, 4 mana for 3/3. This is a whole cycle of muses in the set. I think this is the only one that has a specific tribal effect. I don't think any of the others care about a particular tribe, which is interesting. So at the beginning of your upkeep, you draw X cards and you lose X life, where X is the number of zombies you control. So obviously that can get like a little out of control if you have a lot of zombies. In both good and bad, you could like really put yourself on a clock there. She's a zombie herself, so she counts herself even if you have no other zombies on the board, but that's pretty unlikely to happen. This can be really great. Just the potential, like it's I've talked about it a little bit before, but like paying life for draw more cards is like I always feel like such a milestone in like player skill, because like newer players or like younger players like generally don't want to lose life for any reason, which is understandable because when you've lost all your life you lose the game. But like there's definitely that tipping point I think in skill when you realize that like I don't mind losing say 2 or 3 life if it's gonna get me, if I'm essentially gonna like skip ahead like 3 turns, get 3 turns worth of resources. So yeah, I think this is a good card to include, especially in a theme deck, which I say would have been picked up by maybe like newer players, and kind of introduce them to this concept. And like it maybe would have been scary, and they play it like, oh, I don't want to play it, but like maybe they did, and like, oh no, I won that game because I managed to draw like 5 cards in a single turn, and whatever, I lost 5 life, but I basically I drew a fresh new hand of cards. So yeah, Greyball Muse, good card, like it. A single Noxious Ghoul. This is like this is really good. I really like Noxious Ghoul. It feels like a design from like a more modern set. Because like it's really good. So 5 mana for 3/3. Whenever Noxious Ghoul or another zombie comes into play, which is like that in itself, like that rules templating, because you see that a lot in modern cards. So the fact it counts itself, like it feels ahead of its time. But whenever Noxious Court or another zombie comes to play, all non-zombie creatures get -1/-1 to turn. So this is really fun. Like you play him, and if you can potentially get another zombie out in the same turn, potentially huge, like one-sided -2/-2 or -3/-3. And just like sweep the board, and like all your zombies are obviously absolutely fine. So yeah, Noxious Court, super good. 2 Shepherds of Rot. 2 mana for a 1/1 tap. Each player loses 1 life for every zombie in play. Again, super good. Like that's a really good. Like there's no cost to it other than just tapping, and the fact you could use this just to make an opponent, or actually or multiple opponents if you're using this in a multiplayer game, just like lose potentially like 3, 4, 5, 6 life just by tapping him. You lose that as well, but like you're probably going to be coming out ahead of an opponent, if you've got all these zombies and you're like really putting the pressure on, because you've got to be like really aggressive with zombies and really put people on the back foot. So yeah, Shepherd of Rot, again, like super good zombie card. Then Soulless One, who is the zombie avatar. This is again a whole cycle in the block. A different avatar for a different tribe. So he's honestly like one of the more boring ones, I think. But he has the potential, I think, to be the biggest because he counts the number of zombies in play plus the number of zombie cards in all graveyards. So again, it benefits off your like a lot of these cards actually benefits off your opponent's zombies as well if you were playing like a mirror match or something. Like all the other avatars have some sort of keyword ability, but he's the one who is just like going to be raw muscle. Then we have like some zombies which aren't so great, honestly. So we have Dripping Dead. This is like pretty bad. So 6 mana for a 4/1 that can't block, and basically has like bad death touch or like pre death touch. where, if it deals combat damage to a creature, destroy that creature, it can't be regenerated. 6 mana for a 4/1 that can't block is pretty awful, honestly. So like this is definitely like one of the zombies you would have cut from the deck as soon as possible. Really bad card, I think. So bad, I'm convinced it must have been a misprint. I reckon it would have been. I reckon it should have been like 2 generic and 2 black, maybe. So it's only 4 mana. But that's just a. Whenever I see a card like that, I'm always convinced there was a printing error at some point. And 2 Embalmed Brawler. So 3 mana for a 2/2, but it has Amplify, which is an ability that only shows up. I think it only shows up. No, it shows up in the next set as well. I think it shows up in Scourge at least. It definitely. I mean, like it doesn't show up enough really to matter. So Amplify is an ability where, like, as you play it, you reveal cards that share a creature type with it, and it gets a +1/+1 counter for every card you reveal. Typically, you don't want to do that. You don't want to like reveal what you've got in hand to an opponent. Especially not for this guy, because it's such like a rubbish effect. Whenever it attacks or blocks, you lose 1 life for every +1/+1 counter on it. So I would say to make this worth its cost, you would want to reveal probably at least 2, so it's a 4/4 then for 3 mana. So it's slightly ahead of the curve. But then, you lose 2 life every time you attack or block with it? I don't think that's that great. This would have been another one I would have cut straight away. Festering Goblin, on the other hand, is an absolute all-star. 1 mana for a 1/1. Whenever it dies, target creature gets -1/-1 to end turn. Super good. Unfortunately it's not up to 1 target creature, so if you're the only one with creatures, you would have to target one of your own things, but whatever you're playing zombies, you're going to get stuff back. I think there's actually been a kind of like a modern redesign of it. I think it's called like Putrid Goblin or something, which is basically exactly the same. Except it has the wording of like up to 1 target creature, I think. But yeah, would have liked to have seen more Festering Goblins rather than Dripping Dead and Embalmed Brawler, who are just terrible, I think. And then the other rare of the deck is Ghastly Remains, so triple black for a 0/0 with Amplify. At the beginning of your upkeep, if Ghastly Remains is in your graveyard, you can pay triple black. If you do, it goes back into your hand. So then you can play it again and you can amplify it again, I guess. It's fine. I mean, like the fact that it's a zombie that can, come back on its own. It doesn't need any other effect to reanimate itself. You don't have to like pay life or anything. It's just 3 black mana. You don't have to wait for a certain trigger, like when another zombie enters your battlefield, enters the graveyard, you get it back or whatever. Kind of like boring as a rare. Actually, I'll say, just because I don't think it would ever have too much effect. But I guess it doesn't stay dead. It's all right. It's okay. It feels like kind of a weak rare, which is kind of the problem, which we'll get to actually when we get to the end of this analysis. So we have a full playset of Skin Thinner. 2 mana for a 2/1. Has Morph for 5 mana. When it's turned face up, destroy target non-black creature. It can't be regenerated. This is basically like your kill spell in the deck. You play this guy face down, flip it face up for 5 mana, which is a lot of mana. But then you do like a dark banishing effect. What's nice about this is that he's unlike a lot of other morph creatures, he's actually costed okay. Like if you don't morph him. Like you could pay just like 2 mana for a 2/1, which is like obviously not wonderful, but like at the time that was fine for a black creature, like just to be a 2/1 for 2 with like no drawback. Not as it's obviously that morph bit is expensive, but it's on a common, I guess, so it's fine. And having a full playset of them is nice as well. 3 Smoke Spew Invokers, 3 mana for a 3/1. If you hit 8 mana, you can give a creature -3/-3 until end of turn. But which is fine. I mean, what else are you going to do with 8 mana, I guess, in this deck? Fine. And then 2 Withered Wretch. This guy's pretty good from what I remember. So 2 black mana for a 2/2, which would have been a big deal. That's like it's a 2/2 for 2 in black with no drawback. And the ability 1 colors to exile a card in a graveyard, which would have been an absolute horror if he had existed back in Odyssey block, where he would just like rip apart graveyards, remove like threshold cards and flashback and stuff. Definitely one of these cards that was kind of introduced maybe to check the power of a previous set, maybe, I don't know. But just, I mean, like, perfectly fine in his own. Like, yeah, I say, so rare to have a black 2-drop that has no drawback and is, like, decent body as well. And then we have some cards that aren't zombies, but sort of like care about zombies a little bit. Apart from a Feto Exterminator, I've got no idea why he's in here. So Feto Exterminator, 3 mana for a 3/1, has morph when he's turned face up, which basically means, like, why would you ever play him unmorphed unless you were desperate to get the 3/1? Target Reach gets -3/-3 turn 10, so fine removal spell. We have 2 Deathmark Prelates, 4 mana for a 2/3. Has the ability 2 and a black, sacrifice a zombie, destroy a non-zombie creature. Yeah, fine. You got plenty of zombies here that you could use for that ability. Yes, it is. Obviously, the downside is that it can only be done whenever you could play a sorcery. But yeah, I think that's fine. Sacrificing zombies to kill non-zombie creatures, also really important. That it's a black destruction effect that doesn't care about color; it only cares about type, which used to be like the big like drawback about black kill spells, that they typically couldn't kill other black creatures. Whereas this one can, happily kill other black creatures. Unfortunately, most of the cards in the block, most of the black creatures are zombies, so maybe there's it's still essentially the same restriction in a way. But yeah, I think Deathmark Prelate's okay. And then Infernal Caretaker, 4 mana for a 2/2. He's got Morph when he is turned face up. Get all zombie cards from all graveyards back to owner's hand. So it does affect your opponent as well if they're playing zombies. But yeah, this could be really great. Like, if all your zombies die, whatever, get them all back into my hand and I'll play them again. And then you could do Gem. Oh no, you can't do. No, Gem Palm Bluta cares about them in play. Never mind, ignore what I just said. But yeah, Infernal Caretaker, I think, is a pretty good card to get all your zombies back. And then all the non-creature cards, there's not many of them. So we have a single Cruel Revival, 5 mana for an instant that destroys a non-zombie creature. Again, has that, like, that condition where it doesn't care about color, so you can use it to kill black creatures. Destroy target non-zombie creature, and then get a zombie back from your graveyard back into your hand. Yeah, super good. I don't know about super good; it is a little expensive, but it's fine for a common. It's fine. A single Dirge of Dread gives all your creatures fear until end turn, and you can cycle it. If you cycle it, you only give one creature fear until end turn, which is, I mean, it's still nice that it does something when you cycle it. A single Feeding Frenzy, 3 mana to give a creature -X/-X till end turn, where X is the number of zombies in play. Ideally, you want this to be at least 3, I think, so it's like kind of costed okay. But obviously, it scales up really nicely. And then 2 Barren Moors, which is cycling land, which is fine. So what could have been? So as discussed, some of the zombies in here aren't super good, like the Embalmed Brawler, the Dripping Dead. There's a few zombies which, like, I'm surprised weren't in here, or just cards in general. Effetto Dredging, I've mentioned it so many times in, like, so many of these Onslaught decks that have black in them. Doesn't have Effetto Dredging, and it's like a perfect card. You get 3 creature cards of the type of your choice back into your hand, which obviously goes really well with zombies. Yeah, really surprised it's just not in any deck. Especially it's common as well. Haunted Cadaver could have been here. It's 4 mana for a 2/2, and when he deals damage to a player, you can sacrifice it, and if you do, they discard 3 cards, which is pretty huge, and it has Morph, so that would be a really mean thing to have him face down, attacks through, opponent doesn't block it, you unmorph it, and it's only a morph cost of 2, actually, which is really cheap, and then damages something, and they discard 3. That could be really brutal. Nantuko Husk, really fun, like 3 mana for a 2/2, just sacrifice stuff to give him +2/+2 and then make him really big. Essentially a functional reprint of Phyrexian Ghoul, which is like a really good zombie as well. Severed Legion, also surprised this wasn't here. It's just 3 mana for a 2/2 with Fear. Yeah, really surprised it wasn't here. But the big thing about this zombie deck is that it's actually hampered about where it's placed in the block. So with these theme decks, going off a little slight tangent here. So the thing of these theme decks is the rares in the theme deck always come from the set they're released in. So because this this zombie deck has been released in Legions. The 2 rares have to come from Legions, which makes sense, because that's the set it's come out in, and that's the set it's trying to promote. Like, look at these new cards; these are the new rares from it. The thing is, this zombie deck had the potential to be so much better, because if this zombie deck had been released in the next set, there was like so much going on that it could have benefited from. So in Scourge, you had Twisted Abomination, which is a big zombie which has regeneration and swamp cycling. You had Vengeful Dead, which is a card that, like, whenever a zombie dies, opponents lose life. You had Undead Warchief, which gives all your zombies +2/+1 and makes your zombie spells cheaper. You had Carrion Feeder, who's a zombie that when you can sacrifice stuff to put counters on him. And you had Call of the Grave, which is like the zombie enchantment, where at the beginning of each player's upkeep, they have to sacrifice a non-zombie creature until there are no creatures in play, and then Call to the Grave goes on. So, like, if the zombie deck had held on until Scourge, so much potential, potential extra good zombie cards. I mean, I suppose you could argue, like, oh well, at least if you bought this deck in Legions, you were then set up to have these replacements going. But, like, man, the missed potential, I suppose. And then also there's the chance this deck could have been in Onslaught as well in the first set, in which case, like, for rares, you had Gravespawn Sovereign, which reanimates stuff if you tap 5 untapped zombies, or Patriarch's Bidding, which is you choose a creature type, each player chooses a creature type, and then you get all creature types of that type from your graveyard back into play. So if you have all your zombies dead, you say Patriarch's Bidding, zombies, or your zombies straight out into play. So, I mean, like, having it in Onslaught would have meant you don't get stuff like Gem Palm Polluter, which is, I love Gem Palm Polluter so much. It's such a good card. But yeah, so if this deck had been in Scourge instead, it had the potential to be really good, especially as the Scourge theme decks, spoiler, aren't that exciting. Or a little. Well, there's 2 of them which are very similar, and I say we'll get to them. So slight spoiler there. But yeah, this could have been there instead. This zombie deck, and had, like, so many potential good tools. But anyway, that's my thoughts on Zombies Unleashed. Overall, I think it's pretty good. It's pretty solid. Like, zombies have some, like, really nice cards. I like zombies as a tribe. I think they're a fun tribe to usually build around. So I think that was pretty good. I think I prefer the Sliver one more than this one, but this is probably like a close second for me after looking at the all the other Legions decks. But what did you think after looking at the deck list for Zombies Unleashed? Did you like this deck? Did you own this deck? Did you make any changes to it? Did you did you add a bunch of those cards in from Scourge once they were released? Because if you didn't, why not? But yeah, what do you think about Zombies Unleashed? Put a comment below. We'll have a conversation about it. But now we are done looking at Legions themed decks. So in the next video, we're going to move on to Scourge theme decks, and we'll have a look at those. Scourge is kind of a really weird, fun set, so that's going to be fun to talk about. But until then, thank you for watching and listening, and have a great day.